Ned, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making the effort of coming all the way to Scotland to join me.
I'd like to say, Colin, I came just to see you, but it is my home country, despite the fact I don't sound it. So combination of factors brings me here.
We were talking about scaling the show, and it's definitely gone in the right direction, but we aren't quite at the budget for flying you in from Singapore quite yet.
I thought that was part of the deal, right? Wasn't it business class, the whole thing, or not quite the same? No, it's. I think when we got connected and we were going to do the call, and then I mentioned, I might be in Scotland, so it's good. It's good that the timing worked out.
Yeah, it's great, and I know from your own show you'll have found doing it remotely is great, but sometimes in person you just get that little bit more opportunity to just bounce off each other, and you end up in probably more different places than you do over a call. Where, and again, I was talking to you about my kind of corporate background when we were getting organized. When I'm like doing interviews, they're a bit more structured when they're over StreamYard I use, or it's like a version of Zoom. And there is that tiny lag where if you interrupt, you can sometimes break somebody's flow. Whereas in here, we can kind of quite freely bounce back and forth a little bit. And I think that's the beauty of in person.
I think when we started, so we, as you mentioned, had our own show, which is really just, to promote our own business. We actually started without even video on Zoom. So it was just audio. And it was pretty terrible because you couldn't really get when the person was going to speak. As we sit here, you can see when I'm going to speak and we're going to speak. So we are trying to move more and more to it. But I'm a massive fan of the video content side of it as well, because, and as we talked about, the world has changed since COVID. But the reality is, two people sitting together is always face to face is always a better conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And we're definitely going to talk about presence and being like in the moment today, because that's one of the things that you've spoken about online quite extensively. But I think whether it's a Zoom call or an in-person podcast, you are completely within that. And it's one of the rare times in today's society, because of the phones we've got, the distractions we've got, all the different pressures and stresses that we probably carry from varying different levels, or whatever we've got going on. It's very hard to be present.
Yep.
But when I'm in this conversation with you for the next hour, however long we chat for, I'm completely here and nothing else is going on inside my head apart from what I'm going to say next and what you're saying.
It's one of the, we all have too much in our brains today, right? That's the reality of the world. I'm the same with you. So even sometimes, and I hate to say this, but if I'm on a sales pitch to a client, I've done the same sales pitch so many times. I'm an old guy, I'm 56. I've been selling for, I'm going to say 35 years. And, it becomes, the 10,000 hours idea. If you do something enough. And when I do my podcast, or when I'm in a podcast, I'm the same. The phone's gone because I don't know exactly what direction it's going to go. When I'm selling something I've sold, I'm not going to say a million times, I can almost be looking at my phone, thinking about other stuff races through my head. But you're right, when you're in a conversation with somebody that is just that conversation, it is almost like this relaxing, we just talk about what we're going to talk about, and we just go backwards and forwards, and the phone, the other life. It's then and when I run. There's 2 times when I can forget about everything, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, with that whole presence piece in mind, that running piece in mind, you did a TED Talk in 2014.
I did.
What was it all about, and how did you get involved in a TED Talk?
I mentioned this when I was talking to our mutual friend, Darren. And so I'm older, but learning social media more and more. I'm getting more exposed to more people. Alex Hormozy is a guy that we all have heard of. I wouldn't have heard of, but I had. And he had a phrase, it's never been easier to win. So how did I get involved in the TED Talk? And I'll tell you about that. I live in Singapore. I have 2 kids. At the time, my daughter was 14 or 15. She goes to a school that is what we would call an international school. It's expensive, full of parents who are, I would say, A-types, have earned a lot of money and done a lot of stuff. And she came home one day and said, Dad, there's a TED Talk event happening at school, and they have people coming to talk, but they also like a couple of parents to give a TED Talk. And so would you like to do it? I'm like, yes. Why wouldn't I want to give a TED Talk? I mean, that's amazing. And I filled in the form. She brought a form back home. I filled it in and I gave it to her. I gave it to her and she took it to school. And I thought, look, there's 3,000 parents there. I thought, why would they pick me? Sure. I didn't even put the topic. I just said, yes, I'd like to give a TED Talk. And then I can't remember if it was the next day, but a few days later, she said, oh, Dad, the teacher came to me and said, you're good. They've selected you. And I was like, this is wild. Why me? I don't know, Dad. But it's like you're coming to school tomorrow. So I came in and I sat down. And, I'm a confident person.
You've been in meetings that have been heavier weighted than that.
And also I don't like to think I'm anything special, but I'm like, wow, I wasn't like, oh my God, they picked me. I'm like, that's great. I turned up and said, well, look, thank you so much. This is amazing. Why did you pick me? They're like, You were the only parent who said yes. I was the only, never been easier to win. I literally said, I give it. And they were like, I'm like, I was the only guy out of 3,000 parents. They're like, yeah. And they said to me, what do you want to speak about? I said, oh, I haven't got that far yet. I just said yes because it was a TED talk. So that's how I got chosen. I was literally.
If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the raffle.
I mean, look, yeah, you miss 1,000% of the shots. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So then they were like, so what are you talking about? I was like, oh, I don't know. And they asked me, and what's the first thing that came to my mind? Running. I love running. So I said, I'll speak about running. Like, okay, great. Come back in 2 weeks. Give us a demo run of it. And yeah, I did. So that's how I got into the TED Talk. And why running? Apart from my family, it's the thing I love most deeply. And I'd been through quite an interesting experience with running, which I talked about in the talk about learning how to be mindful while running. So I thought I'd talk about that.
Yeah, just on that whole TED Talk piece and you putting your hand up and being willing to do it, I think there's such a lesson there, as you say, like it's never been easier to win because you would think, as you said, with the demographic of parents at that school, the opportunity to do a TED Talk would appeal to some of them from an ego perspective, a mindset perspective, and they would have the skill set to do it as well, which is great. However, for them opting out of that, it opened you up to the opportunity. Now, we're not going to necessarily just talk about why it was such a good outcome, because I mean, almost 750,000 views on YouTube is very significant, but that was never guaranteed. You were just guaranteed to get to give the talk. If they were to look at that now, how many of them would put their hand up and say, I would like that opportunity to have that level of exposure about a particular topic? Because I'm sure when you meet clients now or potential investors or whoever, many of them, there's a small chance when they're doing the research on the guy they're going to meet, if they're Googling you, they're going to find that, which is quite like, it's a great thing to add to your CV, all because you were willing to take the risk of doing it.
It's, it's so weird. What did people say? Why do people not? And I get it. Everyone's different, right? Some people are shy. Everyone's got that. The reality is people don't put their hand up because they think they're going to suck at it, right? And if somebody had said, hey, Ned, you've got to come in and do a dance, I'd probably keep my hands down. I suck at dancing, right? Or I suck at singing, right? So I do understand there's a range of things. But as you say, I cannot believe in that group of 3,000 parents, there isn't somebody who would like to do that. And I'm sure, I mean, look, here's the honest thing. I gave the talk and I like standing up and speaking in front of people. And I sometimes know when it's going well and so it's going badly. As I got into the flow of this, I'm like, oh my God, because it's a topic I love so much. I could just feel it. Like, I don't write things down in front of me. I didn't. I'd written it down, kind of. I'd thought about it. And as I spoke it, I could feel this. And you know, when you look to an audience, I'm sure you've done, you can tell whether the audience is into you or not. They're either looking at you or they're looking at their phones. And everybody was staring. And I was like, oh. And there was a piece in the talk, I don't know if I asked them to count to 10.
I've watched it, yeah.
They all did it. I saw them. And I have a bucket list thing. I want to be a stand-up comedian one time.
Okay.
And I'm petrified of it. Because the ability to hold an audience just with your own voice, I think is so hard. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, got these people. Got them. And I didn't. And I was like, when I got off stage, I was, again, wasn't many people there. Did I know it would get 750,000 views? So it went up online. And in 2 years, it had 127 views. And I wasn't clicking every day. I wasn't checking every day to see how many views.
You were accounting for some of them as well.
I would probably like add 27 of those 100. And I checked one day and there was 67,000 views. Can I tell you why it went there? No. But since then, it's gone to 750,000. And I must admit, honestly, Colin, there's been some weird experiences. I've probably had 300 messages from people going, oh, you've inspired me to do whatever I'm doing better. Like, it's created this little world that I never knew about. So to your question, how many people would like those 750,000 views? I think a lot. Yeah. Why they didn't do it? Honestly, dude.
And it's on them as well. But the actual topic of it, as you say, I think the reason that it's probably spiked in views is because that was released in 2015, I think. In the last few years, I think there's been an increasing awareness, albeit not always a conscious one, that we are becoming less present. I was talking about phones beeping and stuff like that as well. I think technology kind of peaked in its regard of like being us in control of it versus it in control of us to some extent in terms of like the smartphones and the laptops that we have in front of us. I think that peaked a good few years ago now, and since then it's kind of been running the show to some extent when it comes to our attention and our ability to dip in and out when we want to. And I think people would probably have been looking for something around presence, the power of now. It was well titled in that regard. And the topic's almost become more important now than at the time of its release. So that maybe accounts for some of its views as well.
I think when I gave the talk, so I had this coach who I was doing Ironman and I was trying to achieve a goal and I couldn't achieve it. And when I met him, he's like, "Oh no, Ned, it's nothing to do with your physicality. Your brain's wrong. You're mentally not present. You're not doing what you should be doing." And I remember thinking, "Sorry, dude, what are you talking about? I'm doing Ironman. Swim more, run more, bike more. That's all I have to do. Come on." And I had this absolute clear understanding that he was talking shit until I sat and thought. And here's what he said. So if you're not present in the moment, thinking about what you're doing, if you're thinking about something else, how can you be doing the best in the moment? And he broke down that logic and I'm like, okay. So he said, just listen to what I say, do what I say, and don't think about anything else. And I'll teach you how to not think. And I think you're right, Colin. I think this idea that it's very hard to calm your brain these days. Everything's pinging into your brain. And within 6 months, I spent 4 years physically training my body to achieve a goal, could not achieve it. 6 months, same physical inputs, changed my brain, the output, I achieved my goal. And I think people like that, right? People like, I did this and I got this because I did this.
It's the same. So a lot of people on Instagram will ask me about my supplementation routine and what I take and like what do you eat and how do you when do you eat it, all that kind of stuff. Which there's a lot to be said for.
Sure.
But the only thing is, if I add in something new, I won't have changed many other variables, so I'll know if it's had an effect. So I've recently started using Lion's Mane mushroom capsules. Okay. And I've noticed that my clarity is slightly improved. My focus seems slightly improved. I get a little bit of a warm feeling at the front of my head sometimes, which I'm told apparently is a potentially placebo, but also you do notice it. Okay. So you notice it. So in the same way that your physical input for your training was the same for the 4 years, but the 6 months difference was one change in terms of your ability to be present and your ability when you're running. Now that like you say, it can only be down to this one change, this one variable that is switched, and that gives you a lot of benefit to it.
He also, and I really remember thinking, this coach, when the guy who introduced me to him said, most people won't work with him because he doesn't get you to train anymore or do anything different physically and you get a bit of physical output. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. He said, you will run further, better, faster by not doing any more. And I'm like, yeah, that's rubbish. And then, and I've mentioned this before, when I was talking to the guy who had used this coach, we were cycling in cycling land, big groups of people cycle together, middle-aged men, trying to find life purpose, all the BS. And it was 20 of us, and 4 people had dropped back because we were meant to go slower that day. But as a guy on a bike or a girl on a bike, you want to show off and go fast, right? And the 4 people who had dropped back, of that group of 4, all 4 used this coach, and 3 of them had achieved the World Ironman. I wanted to go to the World Championships.
That was the goal that this coach was to facilitate.
Correct. The 16 people who sprinted off up the road, not one of them had achieved their goal. And I remember I'm like, hold on. I'm in the group of people who've achieved their goal and who've done this with this coach. And those 16 who are now going faster and doing more are achieving less. I remember thinking, I'm going to call this dude. I'm going to call this guy, right? So yeah, one input, different output. And look, I hate to say it changed my life. It changed how I thought about things. And it was a good experience. I'm not a religious guy, and I don't know if there was a good spirit in that, but the ability to change one input and have a different output, can't argue with that, right?
What were some of the practices he had you do?
Oh my God, dude. He had this phrase. I can't remember how he said it to me, but how I interpreted it to myself. When you go training, what I used to think about, so I wasn't very good at swimming. I had to swim a lot. He said, I interpreted it. Go to the changing room, change out of your clothes, change into your swimming, unzip your head, take out your brain, put your brain on the hook with all your other clothes, go back and get in the pool. Can't think if you haven't got your brain in your head. Take your brain out of your head. And I had this way of thinking about it. So again, on the TED Talk, when I went for that long run, one day when I counted to 2,000, I was like, there's no brain in my head. Stop thinking about anything else. Nope. Any thought jumps into your head, work. family, bullshit. And I trained myself to do that. And I got to the point that I could think about nothing. It's really hard. That was the single thing that I did. It was amazing.
There's an element of meditation to that, isn't there, where you're trying to empty out all the different thoughts and not have any level of interruption for a period of time. But the benefit of you doing a physical activity instead of just sitting, which is one of the difficulties of meditation, is at least you can focus on the movement of your body, I suppose, and you're sitting within that.
I really suck at meditation, man. So I don't find relaxing. And it's a phrase a friend of mine used before. I can't meditate. You can do anything you like. I struggle. And what I found was, because I like running a long way, and we can talk a little bit about ultra, the longer you run, the easier it is to empty out your brain. So for me now, I have to run hundreds of Ks to get my brain into a place where I'm meditating. But when I was training with the Ironman, I was learning, and I just learned, wow, I've never tried to empty my brain. Like, how often do you do it? You don't do it, like, unless you meditate. So whenever I meditate, I used to sit there, I'm like, work, life, this, that. I'm like, stop.
What's for dinner?
When I was running, and the more I ran, and the more I thought about count, stop, no. I said in the TED Talk, it took me months to get to 10. It did.
It's counting the steps, isn't it?
It's kind of counting the steps, but counting in your own. The counting is just one way of getting rid of the BS in your head. And like, think about it. Your head just revolves all day long. And that time when I got to 2000, and I'd run like, I don't know, 20K, and it worked. And then when I wanted to qualify for the Ironman World Championships, on the back half of a marathon, honestly, I don't really remember it. And I had one of the best splits of the day. I ran faster than almost everybody there. And as I said I wrote a race report afterwards, I ran faster than people who were faster than me. So they ran with their body, I ran with my body and my mind. Yeah, your brain can limit you if you let all the bullshit drag your brain down. Try to empty it.
People you knew who were physically potentially more capable than you, that had proved themselves to be so in terms of their body.
Yep.
You beat them at a time under severe fatigue because
Correct.
You were able to tap into something else.
I remember so the coach gave me some other, again, it doesn't make logical sense. I'll just say it as it is. And as a listener, people can take what they like. On the morning of the Ironman race. So the Ironman race is a 3.8K swim, 180K, a bike, and then a marathon, 42K. He said, Ned, until 21K to go on the run, nothing in your brain. Nothing in your brain. I don't want you to think about the race. I want to think where you are. Every stroke, take your stroke on the swim. Think about each stroke, every pedal stroke on the bike. I wasn't perfect. I thought about some stuff, but with 21K to go on the run, every single emotion that you have held in for all of those months of training, when you went slower, when you kept it in, every single piece of effort, you don't spread it out over. So an Ironman for me was 10 hours. Don't spread it out over 10 hours. You have learned for the first 9 hours or 8.5 hours to not run on mental energy, only physical. In the last hour and a half, everyone else has spread out their mental energy over 10 hours. So when they come for their last big effort, their brain's like, yeah, we're done. He's like, Ned, your brain is brand new, man. You have stored up all of this emotion and energy.
You've not been using it.
Not been using it. So physically, I was as beaten as them, but mentally, man, I had trained myself to not use up mental stress. So when it came to that, I remember I still remember I was coming downhill in Korea. I was in Ironman Korea. I came downhill, and on the first loop, I remember at this point, as it starts to go up, when it gets hard, I'm going to sprint. And I sprinted for 21K. I went hard as I've ever gone for 21K. I mean, I went faster than people who were faster than me because I'd saved my mental energy.
Yeah, you beat people who physically are more capable than you in your hardest state. So you laugh there. You like, the listeners can think of this what they want, and I definitely know that if I had this conversation 3-4 years ago, I would be less open-minded to the spiritual element of this and the kind of mental tapping out element of this. But I think in today's society, if you are willing to lean into some of these things, there's a lot to be unlocked. And I suppose some of it's maybe ancient, some of it's maybe, like, people would call it woo-woo, wouldn't they? But but there's a lot to be said for it because it happens too often. And I think if I was to be the average person who's completely ignorant of all this stuff and taps out and just is a slave to their phone and fast food or whatever else they're a slave to, I would much rather opt into this side of life than
if
that.
It took me. Look, so I'm 56 now. I did that when I was 44. I think it takes a certain amount of getting out of your own way, right? Like, if I was a young man at 20, I'm like, I'll rule the world. Like, I think I know everything, right? Oh, again, it was that day when I was cycling with 4 old guys. The young bucks were up the road, right? And again, I don't want to crap on young people. Young people are amazing. But I remember thinking, oh, right, doesn't matter what I think. I'll get rid of your own ego. Get rid of your own sense of I know. If you can get rid of your own sense of I know, and it's been hard for me. Like there's a phrase I've been trying to adopt. Strong opinions, loosely held. If you have strong opinions, strongly held, you're not going to learn shit, man.
I've said that phrase in this podcast before as well, which I really, really like. So I like that you bring that up because I think you come up against a lot of people who have opinions that are extremely strongly held, as you said, but without any evidence towards it. And I think one of the things I pride myself on to a large extent in most areas, I've probably got some fixed mindsets on some things, but I'm quite growth mindset on most things. If you can present the evidence to me of why I should think differently, I'm totally willing to do a U-turn.
But that's honestly, man, it's quite like I wasn't like that. I was, and I'm still to a degree. The fact that you're able to, maybe because on this podcast you get to talk to a lot of people, right? So you get to see so many different, you again, I used to listen to Rogan 10 years ago, and one of the things he's always said is like his reality. He has strong opinions, but he's listened to so many people. How can you not open your mind? The biggest problem is this. It's super easy just to listen to people who agree with you. It's so easy, and it's taken me a long time to be like, oh, wow, I don't know shit. And it's okay. So I don't think it's easy to get out of your own way. I really don't. And I'm still learning, and I still have lots of knee-jerk reactions. I'm sure we could bring up plenty of topics that if you said, what about this? I'd be like, dude, no. I'm trying.
Yeah, I think a level of awareness as to what you're very fixed on and what you're open to. So, for example, the spiritual stuff, I've now decided that I'm open-minded to it. Yep. So when I have a conversation on the podcast about grounding or meditating or counting, these are all things that I'm willing to hear and be open to. And because my rational brain has decided that's the case, I can be moved around at will on that to some extent, and I can action the bits that I think are going to be relevant for me. But like you say, as a young man, I think it can be a little bit harder to have that open-mindedness.
Look, it's do you remember Benjamin Button? Do you remember the film, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button? I don't think it was the best film ever, but the idea was that would actually work better, right? Imagine that as we were younger, we had all this knowledge in our brain, and as we got older, life got a bit easier like a kid and you didn't have to worry about stuff. Of course, that's not going to happen, but I think it is easier. Like, I remember my dad's a scientist, and sat as a kid, and he was trying to recommend us to read the Encyclopedia Britannica, which was really the internet, right? So you had these 26 books, A to Z, and we had them, and I didn't really try to read them, but I read them when I needed them. I grew up a self-sufficient lifestyle. So when I first caught a rabbit and I had to, gut it to eat it, I don't know how to deal with a rabbit. So I went to my encyclopedia and I opened it up. But the reality was, you just read what was there. And the internet today, like, there's no excuse. Every piece of, now, of course, on the internet, you can prove yourself right or wrong to your heart's content. Any topic?
Source Wikipedia.
Yes, I'm correct. Yay. As long as you're open-minded enough to understand it. So I think I don't know, look, I am how old I am. That's not changing in my ability to understand and debate with things. I'm just super happy that and again, there's some things I still knee-jerk react to, but I think the ability, and again, the TED Talk and what I've been able to do in that area is that it came at the right time in my life. If I'd met that coach to tell me to be power of the now and count steps when I was 25, I would have been like, dude, no, sorry.
I've said before in the show as well, I read Power of Now when I was at university, and I think I read about a chapter and a half because at university at 19 years of age, going out twice a week, playing rugby, lifting weights, chasing girls, like I was present. I was present in whatever I was up to at that point in time. But when I read it, when I'd graduated and I was working my first sales job, I was like, I'm so busy. I'm so hectic. There's no time for me to fit everything in. Then I needed presence when I wanted to play golf, when I wanted to be with friends. I wanted to be with them at that time, and I was finding that more difficult because work emails could come in, Instagram notifications, anything could come in that would drag you away from that. So when I reread the book, then I understood much more what Eckhart Tolle was working towards.
It's going to come to you at some point, right? Maybe not everybody, right? And I don't use it all the time, right? I still get super absorbed. I run a startup now, family, all this different type of stuff. So I definitely find that I still need to remind myself more and more that do what you do. I have this thing. Now, when I get asked about my startup, I turn up every day to do the best I can in the moment, and it will be what it will be. Of course, we plan and strategize and life, and You know, what's it going to be? I don't know. Like if you're not present right now, the outcome's not going to be as good as it can be. That's all I know.
When did you start to learn that lesson then? Purely through your Ironman training?
I don't know. I struggle to relax. I struggle not to talk too much. I don't know what the condition is. You know, my dad is of the same ilk. We talk incessantly. And I realized that if you just talk at people, it's not a good outcome. My darling wife, she said, she taught me something that I really liked. Because when I first met her, I would just talk at her. At the end, she's like, you want to know anything about me? Like, oh, oops, sorry. Shit. And she taught me a thing that I really love and I try to use. If you leave a conversation with somebody and you haven't learned 3 things about them, it wasn't a good conversation for them. And I don't know when I really started to think about that. Maybe as I had kids and got older and take yourself less seriously. Like, I'm not changing the world. Jesus Christ, like, no one really cares what I say, you know? So let's make that conversation interesting for the other person. Then when you listen to other people, you're like, oh, whoa, this is great. I love people. I love talking to people. But it's an art form. It's a skill. I mean, you're a sales guy. I'm a sales guy. I think the art form of sales is dying. And so when did I realize? I don't really know. Maybe training for Ironman. Maybe just as I got older. Maybe all old people get wise. I don't know.
An accumulation of things. And that's a great framework as well. I like that. If you come away and you don't know 3 things about that person, you haven't maybe been inquisitive enough. You haven't been interested enough in them.
It's so, we were talking about remote work, that small incident at the coffee or the water cooler where you just learned something about that person that you just didn't know. Oh, you both play guitar. Oh, wow, what guitar do you play? Oh, you sing, or whatever it might be. Oh, you run, or you do this, or you watch that show. And I think we're losing that skill set in today's world. Like we talked about, 5 minutes on Zoom, you're not going to ask them random questions. Although, as I've learned on sales now, every call I make on Zoom, like my technique, first 5 minutes, man, I'm always going to find something to ask you about, no matter what.
Yeah, so you're employing that in the remote world, but people are maybe not as used to it yet, and they're not as aware of it as you are.
I don't, again, I've been selling for 30 years, right? So how do I get aware? I think it is accumulation of life. I've still got, hopefully, I don't know, I'm 56. Am I halfway through my life? I've no idea, but I'm certainly at least halfway through, if not more. So I've had a life whereby I've lived in many countries, done lots of things, like the TED Talk. Like I'm going to put my hand up every time. Even if I can't do it, the more you put your hand up, the more you learn stuff. You get it wrong, you get it right. Through a variety of things, I feel pretty lucky to have learned. So I keep doing it.
I think so. Ultra appears to have played a big role in your lifestyle. How did it start?
Ultra running?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you exactly how it started. I was sitting minding my own business. I was 26, working in Hong Kong. And a guy called Justin Hodge stood up. And in Hong Kong, there's a very famous 100K trail race, teams of 4. No background in running. I've never run. He stood up and he said, who would like to join a team of 4 running a 100K race? It's in a month. Honestly, before I even thought about it, I put my hand up. I was like, me? I'll do that. He's like, have you run before? I'm like, no. Why do you want to do it? I don't know. So my first running race ever was a 100K race. He said, we need 2 other people. And I met it. So that was Justin Hodge. I met a guy called Rob Hart, who has become one of my dearest friends ever, a true endurance athlete. And we did that first race. We came like 4th out of 1,000 teams. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, I'm good at this. And this is the one thing, right? If you find something you're good at. And the other thing was, I don't know why, I'm good at suffering.
Okay, I was going to ask straight away, so what made you capable of going within a month to being capable of running 100K?
I honestly don't know, but maybe, just maybe. So I grew up to a degree self-sufficient, to a degree. We didn't have central heating in the house. My dad's view was if it's cold, put on another jumper. If we wanted to eat meat, go and catch it. We didn't take medicine. Just, suck it up, princess. I know that's not work, but just suck it up, right? And I don't know if that idea that it's cold to put another jumper, like it's fine, it's okay, it'll be okay. It's not real suffering, right? Real suffering is
all relative.
Being in a war zone or being hungry, real suffering. So here's a weird thing. At 18, I was 5'3".
Okay.
Super small guy. Tried to play rugby to prove I was tough. I wasn't. I don't know why. And then I just wasn't good at many things. I was fine, but not really good. And then I became this height, 5'11", between 18 and 19. And I was like, whoa, what happened? I really don't know why that biologically changed.
Delayed growth spurt.
It was. So I was never very good at any sports. I liked sports, never very good. And I never really found, and I was okay at skiing. I was okay at everything. But I really wanted to be good at something. I really did. And I was not going to be ball sports or whatever. And I was like 26 and I got on and did this. I'm like, oh, and it hurt. Did it hurt? Yeah. Like, I don't know if you think ultra comes with a range of hard stuff. Like, listeners, if you ever do ultra, get Vaseline, put it on your nipples because your shirt's going to rub. And so on that first race, I wore like like fabric baggy shorts and a cotton t-shirt. By the end of the race, I had blood dribbling down from my legs, my groin, and my nipples. And it's like, oh, wow, like this is not all fun. But I managed to suffer through it. And I was like, oh, I'm good at suffering. And yeah, why? Honestly, man, I don't know, but
Iron sharpens iron though, doesn't it? So in times of peace and relative stability and relative comfort, you were doing slightly harder things in terms of it was a little bit colder. We were catching some of our food, that kind of stuff. You were being forced to be self-sufficient. So you were slightly more predisposed to be resilient than the average person, I would say.
You know, again, this is all relative. Suffering in the modern world is different from real suffering. So if you live in a war zone or don't have enough money for food, aircon, heating, supermarkets, Jesus Christ, as humans, we don't have to do anything hard today if you live in a modern world.
You don't even have to go to the supermarket. You can deliver it to your flat.
Come on, people. You don't have to do hard things. The world would be better if those of us who do have modern life did more hard things. At some point, we're going to talk about my favorite human, apart from my family, a guy called Lazarus Lake, who organizes unfinishable races. And he said, we'd all be better with slightly more suffering in our lives. Like, hey, here's a marathon. You can finish a marathon. I'll get lots of hate for this. Oh, yeah, you did a marathon. You're always going to finish a marathon. Finishing doesn't achieve anything. You need to fail. You need to fail. Failure is so crazy important. That's when you learn hard things. And I just love the idea of ultra that some races you can't finish.
That's interesting. There's no finish line for some of these races apart from you almost not being disqualified, but like being like stopped effectively, either by yourself or medically or whatever.
Correct. So Lazarus Lake is one of the pioneers of ultra. His real name is Gary Cantrell. He organizes races that, if you've ever watched a show on Netflix called The Race That Eats Its Young, it's called the Barkley Marathons. We have Backyard Ultra now. But each of these, and he's our, I don't know, he's our Buddha, he's our poet laureate, his statement is this: you only learn from failure. You don't learn from success. Success fools you into believing you're incredibly good at what you do. And of course, you're better at some things than me, I'm better at some things than you. But when you do his races, so his Barkley Marathon race, it's been 40 years in, 50 people start every year. So 40 years times 50, 2,000 people have tried, and 16 people have finished.
Borderline impossible.
But it's possible.
Of course.
Borderline. And then the Backyard Ultra it's a last man standing event. We run 6.7K a loop on the hour, every hour, until no one else is left. You stop when you want to stop, man. It's up to you.
Do you, is the process progressive overload? So do you get a taste for ultra, so the 100K run, and then it just scales and scales and scales and scales?
Yes. Yes. You can never run far
enough.
Never
be satisfied.
I'm never going to be satisfied. I'm never going to be satisfied ever. Full stop, ever. Absolutely never. I ran a 213K race, absolutely exhausted at the end, absolutely loved it. And then almost on the next day, I'm like, well, I want to do a bit more. And then there is this, and again, this sounds like 100K races. Like, yeah, I know I can finish a 100K race. Now I'm 56, right? I don't have huge amounts of time, but I still think, so I'm doing a 200-mile race later this year. One go, 200 miles. And again, maybe my brain's just delusional. I don't think there's any chance that I don't finish. And I think I could go further. And I've just got used to doing races that you don't finish.
Yes.
I don't know why my brain likes those so much. And I would love to encourage everybody. So Backyard Ultra is a race format. So if you can run 6K, you can do a Backyard Ultra. So let's say you can run 10K today. So do you think you could run 6.7K? Do you think you could run 6.7K twice? Probably in an hour, one, then hour. 3 times, 4 times. Now the world record today is 100 times.
So that's them stopping or finishing within an hour, getting however long there's left before the bell
10
goes
minutes.
again or the starter gun goes, and then you go again until you cannot.
Yeah. And so what is the word cannot? What is the word cannot? The word cannot is physical, it's mental, but almost always in backyard, it's mental. Like even when I've dropped out my last one, 28, like my body had broken down and to the point where I didn't think I could have continued. If someone had put a gun to my head and said, you have to carry on, could I have carried on? I think I could have. So I gave up. And it grinds my gears.
I was going to say, does that burn?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Really
Of course
does,
it does, because you believe you're capable of more.
I always believe I'm capable of more. And this is, again, it's funny, you know, because sometimes I think podcasts feel like a therapy session, right? Why do I put my hand up for the TED Talk? Why do I want to do Ultra? Honestly, like I don't have like a simple answer, but love it. Love it. So it's not for everybody. I think I learned a great deal from, again, I'm very particular. Like I love backyard now because I don't think I mean, it doesn't matter. If I do, so my best is 28 loops, which is 187K. Do I think I can do 30 loops? Yes. Do I think I can do 4 loops? Yes. Do I think I can do 100 loops? Probably not, but I know I can do more. And that's what fascinates me.
Keep striving for those extra ones.
But it's the same in, you know the phrase, life's not a destination, right? It's the journey about it. And I think Ultra, there is this, we talked about meditation being in the now. When I got to 180K, believe me, man, there's nothing left in your brain. Your brain is stripped.
You were saying that's changed over time though. So for example, when you first started, you probably achieved that emptiness and that clarity and that freedom from your head.
Yes.
Earlier.
Yes.
But now you're capable of more, so you need to go further to chase that next feeling.
And again, I don't want this to sound like, oh, well, look at me. Like, so every Sunday now I go out and run a marathon just because that's what I need to get a little bit of my fix.
Your body's got the capacity to do it, so it's not as hard. It's the same as like you see a guy in the gym warming up with 60 kilos on bench press.
Correct.
That might be somebody's 1 rep max.
Correct. And for him, that's what he needs. And so it's funny because, so you know what Strava is?
Yes.
Of course, you Strava app, everyone's. And so I go out on Sunday and it's not exactly, I run 40K, 45, whatever. And they're like, whoa. And I don't want it to be like, whoa. That's what I need for my fix. I need to run that. And it's funny. I have ultra friends who are like, oh, you only ran 40? Huh. Like, were you hanging? What are we doing? Like, what's going on, right? And it's funny because you end up, like, you go to the gym and you know, if I went to the gym, I can barely rep 5 kilos, right? So I'm on that lower. As you get in the world of ultra, like, it's so funny. The weirdness that you find. People are like, oh yeah, you know, just popped out for 100K, quick run, get my brain right. So I feel this need to go and run long distances, partly to keep my brain right. What would it take to empty my brain now? I think 200K.
Yeah, to feel that level of just switched offness.
I don't know, you know, I can switch off after 40, 50K. I honestly, like, I'm not spiritual, religious, but I feel I don't know what a nirvana is. When I get to that level, when I ran 200K in Singapore, I remember one time just sitting down on the road. I couldn't even, you know, I said you have to count to 10 to empty your brain. I couldn't even put anything in my brain. There was nothing I could put in. It wasn't like, why am I here? And this is one thing, again, I never wonder what, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, I did a marathon. I really wondered why I did it, or I was hurting towards the end. Like that place, when I'm sitting on the road, totally empty brain, body is exhausted. And I've got, at that time I had 8K to go. And I was just sitting there. And I remember couldn't even consciously put the thought together because I've been awake for like 40 hours. And
that's the other interesting part of these things, isn't it? The deprivation.
Oh, God, it's great, man. Like, it's not good for you. There's a great interview with a guy called Johan Steen. Johan Steen, he's one of the greats of ultra. He can go 60, 70, 80 hours without sleep. And he says, if you want to be great at ultra, you have to practice sleep deprivation. He said, but don't do it. It's a silly thing. It's this great interview. Practice sleep deprivation, but don't do it.
He recognizes that it's not a thing for longevity, but it's a thing to fulfill a purpose that he feels he's got.
Is ultra good for you? No. I don't think going out and running endlessly, you know, so Courtney Dauwalter, one of the great ultra runners, she used to go blind towards the end of her races because she had depleted the liquid in her eyeballs. So she went blind. Johan Steen, one of the greats, got into such a psychosis he was found, there's a race across Tennessee. There's a 500-mile race across Tennessee. He had almost done it without sleep, and he was found in a psychosis through town, believing he was in another world, right? And he nearly got run over because he was on the road. And, these are not healthy things, and the brain chemicals depletes. But does it fill your soul? It fills my soul to do these hard things and to listen to other people. Do I want to go blind? No. Do I want to be in a psychosis that I don't come back from? No. Do I want to do things that take me to that edge? Yes.
You want to go there. Oh, it's so interesting. In these moments where you're talking about it, is it easier to identify a why you want to go there when you're thinking about it right now, or is it just an urge?
It's just an urge.
Yeah.
It's just,
it seems that you're just like, I want to do it.
And again, it's not, sure, everyone has an ego, man. So I'm not going to pretend that I don't like people go, whoa, man, you ran 200K. That's awesome. I'm not going to pretend that's not a cool thing. There is, and it's partly because, I can do it, right? And again, I'm 56, right? I can go out right now and run 200K. It's not a boast. I'm super happy that I can do that, right? I couldn't lift 50 kilos, so I couldn't go to the gym and bench press anything. And I think, what I'm super scared of, actually, maybe this is the right answer. I'm super scared that I'll be 70 and I can't run. I'll be super scared that I'll stop this.
You told Darren you've got a calculation that you're working on in terms of on your birthday. How does that work?
So when I was 40, I decided to run 100 minus my age in kilometers. So 100 minus 40 is 60. So on my birthday, I ran 60K. And at the time, I wasn't so much into ultra, but I was doing marathon. So it did feel actually like quite a hard effort. So when I was 41, I ran 100 minus 41, which is 59. So the mathematics work. So my birthday just went by. I was 56. I ran 44K, but I ran 40K. I run 40K each weekend. So it almost feels like a bit of a cheat right now. Like it's not a massive effort. But when I'm 80, that's going to be 20K. When I'm 90, that's going to be 10K. When I'm 99, that's going to be 1K. Can I still run 1K when I'm 99? I really, really hope so.
What do you think you're going to need to do in the meantime to make that possible?
So I'm learning strength training. So here's the good realities. Stop eating so much shit. So we are in Scotland today. I am from Scotland. You are from Scotland. I love Scotland with all my heart. But Jesus Christ, people, the food in Scotland, and it's my fault. I eat all the shit that Scotland has to offer. So I eat a large array of processed food when I come here, like Tunnock's caramel wafers and chips and iron brew, which I should not do. So to live longer and run, I need to stop eating processed food. That's my own issues. I live in Singapore now and I eat less when I'm there. I need to do some strength training, which I don't like. So I'm trying.
It'll make your body more robust in your joints as well.
Yeah. Look, touch wood, man. I do not have any running injuries, which is crazy because I run 100K a week. So it's crazy. I should have, I don't. My granddad on my dad's side was a 400-meter champion in the army. My dad, who is 88, is still running today. So good genetics, for whatever reason, allow me to run.
Phillips genetics are strong.
I don't know, man. I do not know.
Built different.
I don't know. So I'll take it. So what I want to do is try not to be stupid, try to eat not so much shit, do a bit of strength training, and don't stop running, because I think my general positive outlook on life would deteriorate pretty rapidly. So when I was 40-something, I had a back injury, which gave me sciatica. I don't know if you know what sciatica is. It's nerve damage in your leg. So I couldn't run for a year and a half. And my leg was going numb, and I thought I'd never run again. And as a grown man in a physio, so this is 10 years ago in a physio room, so there's like 5 people in the clinic, and they just draw curtains around you, right? Okay. So there's no real privacy. And the physios are talking to the clients. Oh, how are you? A little tennis injury. How's your elbow? There was a lady called Janice who'd been my physio for a while, and I was still running on my nerve damaged leg, and I was destroying it. And she tried to tell me in no uncertain terms till one day I'm there. She's like, all right, you're never going to run again, ever. And I burst into tears. I burst into not a little sob. I burst into full-on tears. And the weird thing was, right, there's 5 other people having their normal little physio on a Monday morning. And there's some grown man dude in the thing. I was bawling my eyes out because she told me I would never run again. And I'm glad she did, because I remember I was like, I wouldn't listen. I was running on a damage. She's like, stop running. Stop running now. Stop it. And I wouldn't. She's like, you are never going to run again, ever. And I burst into tears. I remember going home and my wife's like, oh, she's a bitch. I'm like, no, it's not actually true. She's correct. Yes, she was being too hardcore. And Janice, if you're ever listening to this, thank you. And I think I realize now that if I lose running,
it's a big part of your identity.
It's too much.
It's a big hat that you wear. You've got your founder hat, you've got your family man hat, and you've got your running hat. And if that gets stripped away, there's a big gaping hole. Isn't there?
I wouldn't like me. You know, I'm the phrase, you're a better version of yourself. So everybody, doesn't matter what it is. You like the gym, whatever it is. Everyone has these things that you have to do. You know, you have work, you have family, and you have hobbies. Have your work, have your family, but have a hobby. Don't care what it is. Knitting, running, gym. It doesn't matter what it is, but have that thing. And as you get older, because like if you retire and you don't have a thing, hey, family's amazing. Family's super amazing. But if you don't have a thing, my thing just happens to be running.
Yeah. No, well, I'm excited to see as you get older how you maintain this level of ability and meet these kind of milestone goals in terms of running X amount on your birthday. Like 20K at 80 is pretty aspirational. 10K at 90, really aspirational, but can we make it happen?
You know, I would, sitting here today, yes, 100%. Does the belief in doing something create the actual act of doing it? It may do, maybe it's just pure,
will and desire.
Unreasonable logic.
Okay.
So I was talking to another founder the other day. As you build a startup, unreasonable logic is essential because most startups fail. So why would you start one? It doesn't make any sense. Is it logical? But you have to be logical to start one and just be unreasonable. I'm unreasonably logical about my running. I couldn't, if we found a normal 70, 80-year-old, said, hey, you've never run 20K. That's not happening, right? Full stop. You can't take a sedentary 80-year-old, but I'm not going to be a sedentary 80-year-old. And there are some 70-year-olds still running 100-mile races. So I don't hope to run 20K when I'm 80. I'm going to be running 100-mile races when I'm 80. I'm going to be the oldest dude to run 100 miles. I am. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't really care. I'm going to do it.
You're giving yourself the opportunity to do it between now and then through the work that you're putting in and the focus and the priorities that you're having.
Yeah, but it's not a focus for me. You see, look, left to my own devices, if I didn't have any responsibilities, I would run all day. I would just,
of course.
Oh, you see, people are like, Ned, you're so disciplined to get up and go running. I'm like, dude, I want to run. I want to run 50K every day. Like I want to do that. Left to my own device. And I don't mean left to my own device. I mean, what I mean is we have life, responsibilities, and I'm all good. Love hanging out with my family. It's all good. But let's just say, okay, Ned, you have 12 hours a day to do whatever you like all the time. Like, don't worry about life. We'll take care of it. Yeah, I would run.
Almost all of it's going to be running.
Almost all of it's going to be running. Like that's what, so it's funny because people are like, why are you so focused on it? I'm like, I'm not focused, man. Like I have an addiction. Like if I wasn't addicted to running, I'd be addicted to other things.
Of course.
I'm kind of into gambling, and I can see over the edge of gambling addiction, and I really can. I can see it. And
you have to step back and channel into running instead. I understand that entirely.
I need something to focus my energy on, I really
because I know you and Darren were talking about poker as well, and like that obviously lights a fire as well. But if you lean too much into that, then your personality becomes I want to play poker 12 hours a day,
24 hours a day,
24.
And that's not a good thing. So we all have our energies that we can give out during the day. See, I don't like sleeping. I find sleeping a really annoying part of life. I fully understand it's essential. Rest is essential. But when I wake up, I want to do stuff, right? Now, I've wasted a lot of my energies on stupid shit and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it doesn't right now. Yes, I would run all day and then play poker. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be a drunkard or take too many drugs.
That doesn't light your fire in the same way as the playing poker or gambling and the running. Like those light off Ned's receptors in a different way.
That's a good point. So if I had to give things up, so for me, I could give up alcohol. The hardest thing in terms of what I eat would be sugar. I'm addicted to sugar. It's a bad thing. I need to stop that. The second last thing I would give up if I had to give up pleasures in life would be poker. And the last thing would be running. That's the last on the list. That's the
priority list. I understand. We're talking about hats that you wear, and one of them obviously is your work. But you've been out in Asia working in finance for most of your career. What took you there in the first place?
Yeah, a hatred of knocking cold knocking doors in London selling insurance as a cold call salesman, man. Like we talked about it when we started the show.
What product were you selling?
Insurance, life insurance.
Life insurance, okay.
Life
cool.
insurance. And I worked for a company called Allied Dunbar. And they were you know what I mean by a chop shop? A chop shop is a polite term for a place that just sold products. And they were known as Allied Crowbar because while their name was Allied Dunbar, we will get your money out of you. We had a script, man. I mean, we were good. Like, I don't remember it all, but hey, Colin, nice to meet you. How you doing? Good. So how's life? Good. Okay. Would you like to leave? And we get in a bit of conversation. Would you like to leave your family without anything? Do you think that's what they want? You know, we had this
emotional manipulation, pain points identified. Now, don't get me wrong, some people actually really do need to think about their life insurance and what they're doing, but you were doing it, doorstepping somebody who'd never even considered it.
Never even considered it. You know, so, and we started in the job and the guy, the trainer walked in. Have you seen Glenn Ross?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Great film.
Great film. This dude walks in, right? And I don't remember if it was his first sentence out of his mouth, but it wasn't far off. He parked his Porsche outside where we were getting trained. And he literally asked somebody, how did you get here? On the tube, stand up. What is that? If you want that, you do this. Like it was unequivocal, you know? And so you'd knock on doors, blah, 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 blah. Hey, so I did that for 9 months. It was a February day. A good friend of mine was in Australia. And I don't remember how he contacted me because it couldn't be on the internet because it was 1991. Maybe he sent me a postcard. Honestly, I don't remember. He's like, you should come to Australia. And so that got me to Australia. And then I was traveling back home and stopped in Asia, stopped in Hong Kong. And I realized I could sell. And I got a job selling in Hong Kong. And I'm like, wow, this is, you know, there used to be a thing called filth. You're probably too young for this. In London in the 90s, there was a thing called, or in the 80s, called filth. Failed in London, try Hong Kong. The idea was that the center of excellence was London for finance and for anything in your life. But if you couldn't crack it in London, go to Hong Kong, go to Asia. That was a thing. Filth.
You could be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, potentially.
100%. Now, obviously, Asia has grown unbelievably. But I was there. I was like, hold on. So I was getting jobs I shouldn't get. I was like, oh, what? Hold on. I can get a job in finance all of a sudden in Hong Kong because I'm here and I'm me. And I'm like, what? This is awesome. So yeah, I stayed in Asia because it gave me my opportunity. It was an amazing experience. And look, 32 years later, Asia is no longer a place that people think is second rate, right? It has become, I don't know, center of the world.
Timing is massive, opportunities huge alongside that. And you nailed both of those and of course applied yourself in the right ways and maximized what was available to you, which I think is quite exciting to the extent that you ended up as what I've got here, like the managing director at E-Trade, which in terms of you looking at like a finance CV, that's pretty exciting. If you consider that you were like, I was woefully underqualified to have some of these finance jobs.
Yes, but it comes back to where we started. Honestly, man, like I personally am a massive fan of sales, and I know people don't give sales the credit it deserves. But when you're working in a corporate world, when they think about promoting people, salespeople get promoted a lot, probably above their capabilities. Why? Because they're normally personable, and we generate revenue. Look, I did economics university, so it's not like I had no skills. But in Hong Kong, I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, you're 36. You want to be CEO of this business? Or MD? I'm like, this is a US listed business. I'm like, yeah. Like, I say yes to way too easily. And I think there is a larger level of risk aversion in Asia. So less people are going to put up their hands to the degree. So
in terms of the local people?
Yes. Huge work ethic.
Fascinating.
Huge willingness. But there is, you know what I mean by loss of face.
Yeah.
It's more important not to get it wrong than have a go. Whereas I'm like, I don't care if I get it wrong.
Yeah, we have a little bit of that in the UK, like nothing ventured, nothing gained. People won't put their hand up so they get exposed. Because I think I was at the High Performance Podcast live show last night at the King's Theatre in Glasgow.
Whoa.
And one of the questions to the audience was, what are some of the top 10 fears? And people were saying like spiders, heights, public speaking. And Damien, who was presenting it, he said that number 2 is like social isolation or rejection and ridicule. So when you put your hand up to get the job or put yourself forward and you don't get it, you open yourself up to that rejection, that ridicule, that laughter at your expense.
Yep.
And that is something to be avoided at all costs. But you, if you look at your track record and how you've lived, you don't fear that in the same way that others do.
I think I did before, and I don't know why. I think I got over it. You know, a little bit, you know, again, I love podcasts because you start to think about your life in a way you haven't thought about them before. When I was a little kid at school at 5'2", I got taken the piss out of. My brother is called Fred. I'm called Ned. The amount of kids at school who made fun of me. Oh, Ned and Fred in a bed. Oh, wow, that's amazing. You're the first. And what I realized was when somebody makes fun of you, don't cry. It hurts at first, but join in. When they used to say, oh, Ned and Fred in a bed, I'm like, yeah, we do. Yeah, all the time with our Ted. Ned and Fred in a bed with Ted. It's great, isn't it? And then they laugh at you, you laugh at them. You're like, oh, they don't really, even if you get something wrong, it's okay.
It's been diffused.
You can diffuse it, and I let it roll off. Of course, I still get hurt. Like, you know, if I'm on stage and everyone boos me, I'm going to feel sad, right? Like, don't get me wrong. But I also realized no one really cares about you, right? You know, this idea, oh, if I get it wrong, everyone's going to laugh at me. No, they're not. They're going to be on their phone looking at Instagram in 1 second flat. And this is a reality, I think, today. I don't know if it was your podcast and your podcast, somebody said, you know what the fear of public speaking or the fear of standing up? Remember, no one cared about you before, and no one cares about you after. They've moved on. So if you suck, what's the problem? Now, I know that's easy to say and hard to do. And I think I've just, you know who Goggins is, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows Goggins, right? Callous the mind, right? I have knocked on so many doors, done so many sales pitches, been told so many times, no. And you know what I realize? They're not saying, no, Ned, I don't like you. They're just saying no at the present moment. So if you can callous your being to getting told no and failing enough times, it's okay. It's okay.
It's incredibly healthy to recognize that, but it takes a lot to recognize it. And I think Goggins would talk about calluses, but he also talks about the reps. So he must have done the reps in order to build up those calluses. So by you doing so many pitches, so many different presentations, you've almost practiced the art. So you're much more willing to put yourself in that arena as well, which is a huge thing as well. And we were joking, you were like, oh, I think you're 80 odd episodes into your podcast. Yes. This will be 190 something, which is amazing, right? But by this point, of course, I'm better than when I started. Of course I am. So I'm much more willing to do a podcast with whoever because I'm better prepped for it. You were saying you listened to the Matt Kelly episode. I was saying Matt is extremely lively. He's quite intense. And I had to match his energy and try and control it and channel it so it'd be interesting for my audience, not just for the two of us having the conversation, which is important. Yeah. We've got to enjoy it, but it's for thousands of people's ears who are I'm very thankful they subscribe. So with that in mind, I was better having Matt on for episode 183 or whatever it was 100%. Than if I had him on episode 10 because I wasn't as capable then.
100%.
And I shouldn't have thought I was capable then because I hadn't proved to myself.
Yeah, but on episode 10, no one listened to your podcast anyway, right? Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Again, there's this idea. So I started this, my tiny little podcast. People are like, oh, but weren't you worried? I'm like, worried about what? Well, first episode, what if it sucked? I'm like, no one listened anyway.
20 downloads, don't worry.
We didn't even get 20 downloads. No, and even if they think they suck, like even if somebody says, oh, Colin, your first podcast sucked, they're not saying, Colin, you suck. They're literally not saying, I don't like your personality. I don't like you as a human. And that's the thing. And I think, honestly, that's what I've got over. Like you got to laugh at yourself. It's, again, I have done, and again, it's not because I'm great. I'm 56. I've been selling for 36 years. So when I was selling insurance, I was told this rule, 8 meetings a day, 5 days a week, 40 meetings a week. That's what I used to do. Think about that. No, I don't do that anyway. Let's say I do 10 to 15. Let's just be 10 meetings a week, right? That's 500 meetings a year. That's 18,000 meetings I've done. I'm telling you, it's closer to 50,000. And how many have I closed? Not even 1%. So 99 times out of 100, I get told, not really, but I get told, you suck. They're not telling me you suck, but if somebody who did it for the first time, that's what they hear. And, you know, again, it's a bit like Startup Life and Ultra. Dude, I don't care no more. I'm going to do me. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to put this big smile on my face. I will do stupid shit. I will get it wrong. Now, of course, if like my startup's been through ups and downs, man, and if it fails, it will hurt. When I finish a race early, it hurts. And one day I'm going to stand up as a stand-up comedian. And if nobody laughs, I will go back and cry.
But I think you'll do it again, though. I don't think you're only going to do stand-up once, not with your personality.
I want to, that's a hard thing for me to do. If somebody said, Ned, stand up on stage and give a talk about something, fine, I don't really care. But if it had to be like something I haven't done and that's scary, I want to do scary things, right? Like, and, you know, for me, that's why Ultra, and I would recommend everybody, you know, do really hard, scary things. It's awesome. There's nothing better. It hurts in the moment. You know, I had one race when I didn't finish, and it still bugs me today. It was a 100K race. I dropped out at the 80K mark and I walked off the course, and it still bites me today, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, of course it is. Bambu was your startup.
Yeah.
What enabled you to go from somebody that was like climbing the corporate ladder, became MD, to then go out and do your own thing? Because I think that's something that we were talking about before we even hit record again about what I'm up to.
Yeah. What
has to change in a man's mind to do that?
You want the honest answer?
Yeah.
I had lucky investment, got enough money, I didn't need to work. I can give you I can give you a whole range. Two things. So number one, at the time, I had a lucky investment that meant I had the ability to not take a salary.
Yep.
Secondly, was a little bit of ego. So that was honestly the main reason, right? I don't think I was brave enough just to torch it all. And retrospectively, let me tell you, if you're listening and you think a startup's the road to riches, be prepared, man. It is not an easy task. And the other thing was my ego. I was 48, and this was 2016, and there was lots of young kids, I say young kids, doing fintechs. I've been in fintech 30 years. I was in E-Trade in the 90s. People who think Robinhood's like the first online broker, we did online broking in the 90s, people. That was us. We did that. And I did that in the corporate world. I'm like, hold on, these young kids are launching fintechs. I did that.
I know about this.
I should have a go. And I can sell. And I should do it in Asia because my peers are 50 and they're CEOs of banks. I can call these people. So we at Bambu have been very lucky. We've worked with Standard Chartered and HSBC and some of the world's biggest. And I don't mean I know the CEOs of all of them, but I don't have any problem. I can call these people. So a combination of a lucky investment, a combination of getting bust up that all these young kids were launching stuff. And also maybe to the poker, I have a risk adjusted mind that's fully tuned to the wrong side of risk. I was like, wow, how hard can it be? It's really fucking hard.
Really fucking hard. It's interesting. AI is such a huge topic nowadays. And you're kind of at the forefront of how AI is going to mix with fintech and investing. What excites you about that?
It's very kind to say I'm at the forefront. We're not. Our firm does a little bit of it.
You're seeing more of it than
correct.
Most people are.
We're seeing way more of it than most people. So what excites? So I'm always a believer in you have to admit your biases first before you can tell people what your thoughts are. Because if you just tell them your thoughts, they're like, oh, what's this? My dad is one of the greats of AI. My dad started in neural networks in the 60s. So I mentioned I was born in Australia. My dad went there in the 60s to be a scientist, came back because there was no science in Australia in the 60s because it was a long way away. Today, you can do science anywhere. He has been in neural networking. So neural networking is how the neurons in your brain are connected, which results in artificial intelligence. Since the 60s, my dad has been talking about that. The guy that runs Google DeepMind, Jeff Hinton, used to do research with my dad, stayed at my house. As a young kid, I used to play him at table tennis. I didn't know at the time he'd gone to do that. My dad stayed as a scientist, so still lives in a small cottage, self-sufficient in the middle of nowhere. And I'm biased. And he's just released a book called The Cooperative Neuron, which will change brain science forever. How AI is today is just the beginning. How my dad has described it will change brain science forever. So take that as you will. If you're listening and you think I'm too swayed towards my dad's view. So I'm not an AI guy, but I don't have this panic about AI. So my name's Ned. One of the most famous people in history is called Ned Ludd. I don't know if you know Ned Ludd is, but Ned Ludd was around in the Industrial Revolution.
The Luddites.
Correct. First name, Ned, Luddites. What did he say? He said farm machinery will stop humans from being productive. If we have plows and tractors and any machinery that helps us become more efficient, nobody will have work. Ned Ludd was not correct. And Luddites today are still not correct. We will adapt to AI. Will there be jobs that disappear? Yes. When How old are you, Colin? I don't even know.
30.
When you were born, you maybe not when you were born, when you were 10, you maybe thought I'd like to work for Google, right? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't want to work for Google when I was 10 because it didn't exist. Like none of this stuff today existed. And in 20 years' time, so I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son, by the time their kids are grown up, they'll want to work for, I don't know what it's called. It's called Wibble. I'll just make a name up.
It could be anything.
It could be anything.
You're right.
And that company will employ AI to a degree we cannot conceive of today. Do I think humans get eradicated? Do I worry about AI? Sure, there is bad things can happen. There's bad people doing bad things all the time, man. So is it exciting? Yes. Is it changing the world? Yes. I would only worry if your job is unbelievably banal and unbelievably obvious. If you're moving numbers in a spreadsheet from A to B, yeah.
You're in trouble.
You are in trouble. I think the greatest skill set you can learn today is empathy. I do not think, personally, that empathy is AI's figured it out. I don't think it has. I really don't think. I think empathy is incredibly hard to understand. And this, what we're doing here, you understand how I speak, and that rhythm of conversation. I personally, AI will figure it out. But I tell you what, it would freak me out. If we finish this podcast and you told me you weren't real.
Of course. Because
that would freak me out.
Yeah, of course it would, because it's too realistic.
If you were not you right now, and you were AI,
hologram or something, yeah,
I would be freaked out. I'd be like, Jesus Christ, dude, good job, man.
These ChatGPT things are getting really good.
And to my debt, so the T in ChatGPT is transformer. So if you listen to this podcast, you heard it here first. Transformer is the simplest form of AI. It will move into a corporation, which is the next form. So keep an eye out on that.
Interesting. With Bambu, what was the goal? Because one of the phrases that I see all the time when I see your marketing is taking the worry out of money. Why was that?
So we design and build apps that help you save and invest for the future. I mean, who doesn't not worry about it? But okay, I'll ask you a question. How much do you need to retire? What's the number?
For me to be financially independent and retire and stop working, I'd probably want $1 million.
But you don't exactly know, right?
No, it's not. It's not an exact science. That's more off like the kind of finance bros that I've been watching over the years.
Okay, and if I ask you, what's your risk level 1 out of 10? 10 being the most risky and 1 being the least. What's your level?
Yeah, probably like 6.
Okay, so you're a smart, educated person who's looked at finance. You don't even know the exact answers. Is it 6? Yeah, wealth is delivered today. If you are asked to describe what you want for your financial future to be, you're asked, how much do you need for retirement? What's your risk appetite? We ask you questions you don't know. We're literally asking you questions and you don't know the answers to them. Wealth sucks. Actually, to be fair, my first podcast got more than 20 downloads, to be honest, because I called it Wealth Technology is what I built. Sucks. Clickbait, headline, the actual podcast. Was very good. What Bambu does is we design and build the ability to save your wealth in a way that you don't have to worry about, to use data and tech to make it easy. I'll be honest though, I wanted to build a startup that was successful. I wanted to build a startup that got sold for lots of money. I had my own egotistical realities of why I wanted to build it. Did I want to save the world?
There was a problem though that you could fix, because if there wasn't a problem there that you could fix or put a solution towards, then you're not going to sell your startup for a lot of money. So you do have to solve a problem.
100%. When I was working for Allied Crowbar, stuffing funds down people's throats with this, sales pitch, here's the reality, right? I would knock on your door, say, hey, Colin, I'm here to help you. I'm not. I was getting commission only. I was here to sell you whatever product you would buy. That's not solving your problem. The financial advice industry is broken. Fundamentally. It is getting better, but it is broken. i.e. advisors. Now it's changed in the UK. It's changed in a lot of places. It's not a logical industry. Hey, I'm here to help you. Really? I'm here to help me. Like as much as I'm here to help you, right? I'm here to help me, from that point of view. So technology doesn't need to make money. So a piece of software isn't looking to maximize commission for itself, apart from the people who have built it. So look, there is a problem to solve. And here's so we build software around the world, helping people save and invest for the future. You ready for this stat? It's going to blow your mind. Maybe 50% of Americans have less than $400 in savings.
Yeah, it's about 33% in the UK have less than £1,000. So it's staggering. Yeah,
that's You want an answer to the problem? You want a problem? That's a problem. That's a problem. And again, I understand why. Like, I get it. Social fabric is broken down, didn't get the right job. I understand why. Cost of living, I get it.
Materialism at an all-time high.
You know, don't even get me started about buy now, pay later. People, don't buy now and pay later.
This Klarna stuff, yeah. It's
Save now, buy later. This isn't a mystery, people. Save now, buy later. Don't buy now and pay later. But we're humans, right? Self-gratification today is what we want. Saving for retirement. You're 30, you're not going to retire till you're 60. How do you know what you want at 60? You don't know. You tell me $1 million, I'll tell you right now, it's not enough. I'll tell you right now. If you get $1 million, don't stop working, bro.
Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going.
I would do passion projects like this.
No, you would run out of money. You know why? Because you move. So I started selling, and I sold insurance. I earned £1,000 a month. I was CEO of a big financial company. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was more than £1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I just got a bigger house. I just went on bigger holidays.
Lifestyle creep.
It's not even creep, dude. It's lifestyle sprint.
Oh, okay.
You sprint into your new lifestyle. Do not believe this. You sprint into your new lifestyle. Not everybody. Maybe it's just me, but you suddenly, that lifestyle you had, it's not good enough. It's just natural, right? You just move into a new lifestyle.
I get it.
And again, it's not all materialistic. I don't really, need all the materialistic things. But what we've built at Bambu is the idea that, look, it is complex. You don't know the answers to where your future is. If we can build simple savings application, and we're live now so we're B2B, so we design for big banks. So we're live in America, in Kenya, in Indonesia, in all these countries. And the overwhelming same thing is this: humans and money is illogical. If I gave you $1 million now, you seem like a rational dude, you'd probably waste some of it. You're much better off getting whatever it is, £10,000 a month.
Drip fed to you,
because you will behave better with it.
I also think you behave, and I've seen some discussion of this, you behave differently when it's been gifted when you've earned it. So if I find £10 note lying outside here, I'm much more likely to spend that recklessly than if I worked for £10 an hour in a restaurant or something.
Yes. People scratch their heads when footballers who earn £100,000 a month go stupid. Dude, come on, you would too. Even if
it's almost not real. You just don't understand how much is in there. Yeah,
it is a lot to be able to do. So I think, as we get better with technology, as we get better, Bambu as a company, I mean, it has been a wild experience. Like, I cannot even begin to tell you how little I knew, even at 48, about running a business. What an experience of running a startup. It's like an ultra, seriously. Like, it calluses your soul, your mind. I've had the highest of highs. Managing people to achieve things is the greatest. I love it so much. You turn up the next day at work and you didn't get the funding you thought, and the company has no money. I remember a friend said to me, "Are you sleeping well at the moment?" Dude, I haven't slept for 7 years. Of course I've slept, but you haven't slept the same for 7 years.
You're not as restful.
It is the highest of highs, the lowest of lows in your career. Obviously, family has different things. Would I change? It? Actually, I would change. There was a couple of things. There's a couple of things I would change, but I think it's it's been an amazing experience. So we are solving a problem, which definitely makes me happy. But what the outcome will be, who knows? Do
you think the retail investor will trust apps and AI to do these things?
Yes. Why wouldn't they? The advisory. And I'm not saying I was an advisor, but you're incentivized to sell products. Hey, we trust digital banking apps. So look, here's the thing.
Adoption's really quick as well once somebody gets...
Really quick. So 20, 30 years ago, financial advisories was the way forward, right? But let's be real, right? And I was one, but I was a 23-year-old dude with a pitch deck going, hey, anyway, how's your life? Would you like your family to worry about you? I was good, man. I could sell some shit, man. I was good.
Yeah, I can see it.
But I didn't really know any more than the pitch deck. Do I think if Google launched a wealth manager, if Google was asked to manage your money, do I think they would do a better job than a human or you could do? Yes. I'm not against, and again, I'm not against the idea is if you're about to buy your 6th coffee of a day from Starbucks, I'm not against them stopping you doing that. I'm not against, limits being set. If you're not saving. So credit is a Western thing. In Asia, people don't use credit cards. If you earn $100, spend 80. Credit cards? It's a dumb, and I use it. Don't get me wrong. I don't
use credit cards to my advantage because I get points off the back of it, percentage off the back of it. I pay it off on time. I don't use my own money until I need to. Like that's how
good.
they are to be used. But you're absolutely right. People are using credit cards to cover costs that they can't cover initially.
Even in Asia, until recently, mortgages weren't even a thing. You saved up your money, you bought a house. Like you use money to buy. I'm not saying Asia's all perfect from that. It's
a cultural thing.
It's a cultural difference way of doing it. And then your retirement plan, if you live in Asia, was your kids. We don't have social welfare in Asia, unemployment benefit, pensions. We don't have. We have it more and more. But the reality is that your family takes care of you. Yet, when I was 18, I left home, right? Doesn't mean I don't love my folks. I do. So I think the way in the world is changing is that what you're saying, people trust people, but you trust your family the most to take care of you. Do I think if I had to choose to trust a financial advisor or an app to manage my money, I would choose the app today.
And that's the way we feel we're going.
I completely feel we're going. I mean, are we going to go too far? I mean, look, we do a terrible job with money today. 33% of people in the UK have less than £1,000. Yeah. 50% have less than $400. That's not a good job. Let's face it. And again, we started talking about this, but people want to know what you eat. Left to our own devices, humans are idiots. We spend all of our money and we eat shit. Like, it's not good.
Yep.
Left to our own devices, we don't make. And I'm no better. I eat shit. I spend too much money. I'm no better. I'm not trying to say, "Yay, look at me."
You have an awareness of it though when you're trying to step outside of it. So,
I'm glad I run 100K every week, because if I don't, man, I would be a different version of me, and it would not be so pretty. Yeah. Well, it's not pretty now, but still.
Ned, one of the last things I want to ask you about is not all your videos go viral like TED Talks. In fact, you filmed one with an iPhone sat in a beanbag talking about Bambu when you first started.
I did.
How important was it for you to do a video like that though for kicking things off?
You know, everyone gives me shit about that video, and it's totally deserved.
For the listeners, explain what it was.
Absolutely. I started Bambu. I started a tech company, and I'm not a tech guy. I'm a salesperson. I love people, and I love getting the message out. My first employee was a lady called Laura, who was a marketing specialist, and we had no money to do marketing. So we wanted to create content. So I was like, I know. Let's use our little space in our office that we shared with another company. So it was the only space we had. And I recorded a video talking about Bambu. I mean, to say it was unprepared, badly filmed, and shoddily done was an understatement. But a bit like my TED Talk, you know what? We did something, man. We put it out there. And so the idea was, what can we do with no marketing budget, no knowledge? We had a phone. I had a voice. Let's record it. And as Darren, who made fun of me the other day, he's like, the video starts with you going, Ned, 1, 2, 3, are you ready?
I was laughing so much when I watched it. So he texted me and he was like, don't tell him I told you about this. And I was like, I've listened to your episode with him and I know I'm going to bring it up regardless. But the lesson is, do it. It's another rep. Joe Rogan talks about building a mountain a layer of paint at a time.
Of course.
So it was just another layer of paint just getting painted on.
Hey, look, right now, and you and Darren laughed about it in a good way. In a good way. So even when I did something shoddily badly, it didn't hurt me.
It was 2016 as well. I think you get away with it way more back then because...
yes, but honestly, like, I wasn't a young kid back then. The reality was, I'm just a massive believer. Just do stuff, right? What if it sucks, right? Don't do bad things, right? Don't go and do bad things. If you're trying to do stuff and you do a bad job, it's okay, right? We tried to do something. And, you know, the funny thing was, at the same time, I was going to conferences and I had like a little stand. I haven't taught this yet. Well, I know we're coming towards the end. You'll love this. So it was me, Laura, and a couple of people. We're just trying to do our best, right? I didn't even know how to upload it. I didn't know how to do it, right? And we go to fintech conferences. Yep. I had our little booth. So I'm standing there, it's just me, handing out leaflets. Hey, welcome to Bambu. We had one product called Intelligent Advisor. So it was like, like a financial advisor. Intelligent Advisor was printed on our booth. After about a day and a half of this conference, someone came up and said, you spelled intelligent wrong.
Ned. No way. You're action orientated, if anything.
We spelled intelligent wrong on the sign.
No.
But it's printed on the sign. I'm in the middle of a conference. So what did we do? I stood in front of the missing letter all day so no one could see it. And I remember going back, I was like, how? What? But now I think about it. You know what? At least we tried, man. Other people didn't even come to the conference. So can we laugh at ourselves that the one word you shouldn't spell wrong, which is intelligence, we spelt wrong. Yes.
Of course you can. But like you say, you were in the arena, you took action, you took the opportunities. You probably networked with people there that came to do business with you in the future, and they didn't even notice the sign.
You know, the one person who came up to me, shook my hand there, was Vitalik Buterin from Ethereum. And I remember him telling, I was like, oh, hi, who are you? He's like, oh, my name's Vitalik. I'm like, oh, what do you do? And for all you crypto people out there, you'll know who Vitalik Buterin is. And I shook his hand. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice young man. He didn't see that I can't spell intelligent. The most intelligent man on earth. Can't see that I can't spell intelligent. And it just, but if I hadn't gone, if I hadn't tried, and look, I don't know if you know Roosevelt's famous saying, the man in the arena. If anybody hasn't read it, read it. So a long time ago, Roosevelt, an American president, gave this amazing quote. I don't remember it all, but basically it's called The Man in the Arena. And it is not the person kicking dust in the face, dust in the face of the man. It's the man who's in the arena, or the woman in the arena, putting in the blood, the sweat, the tears to make it happen. And however dirty and however ground down they look, at least they're in there. And better that than not. And I love that phrase.
Yes, Ned, and a beautiful note for us to wrap up on. If people want to continue the conversation with you, where should they head towards?
Well, not the beanbag video.
Do not go on YouTube and look for Ned's beanbag video.
Do not go onto YouTube. Actually, go to YouTube, right, and click the TED Talk, and because then I'll get just over 750,000 views.
Yeah, let's get him to 1 million.
It's funny. What will I feel when it gets to 1 million? It's a bizarre thing because someone asked me, "Is it 1 million yet?" I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, No, hold on. It's okay, right? Like I'm not with that. So if you want to find me, LinkedIn is definitely the best place to find me. So just Ned Phillips on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you really want to see the fun thing, go to the beanbag video on
Yes,
YouTube.
Ned's LinkedIn will be linked in the show notes. And thank you so much to you, the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.